The purpose of this video is to educate viewers on the basic principles of fabricating orthotic devices for the hand and upper extremity. This video will review key factors and considerations when fabricating orthotic devices, precautions, different types of materials used, and the fabrication process and what is involved. Choosing the appropriate material. Knowing what material to use depending on what you are trying to accomplish for your patient is important. You will choose your material based off of multiple factors, some including diagnosis, goals of the orthosis, post-operative or not, comfort, and there's others. Each type of material also has different handling characteristics that will be important to understand when fabricating your orthosis. These include conformability, resistance to stretch, rigidity, bonding, and heating and working time. Other considerations when fabricating your orthosis: freedom of movement in the unaffected joints so your patient is able to functionally use his or her hand while wearing the orthosis. Is the orthosis comfortable for the patient? Maybe the patient has fragile skin or has pins post-operatively. Function, allowing for safe early mobilization. Does your dorsal blocking orthosis allow for early active flexion while also protecting appropriate structures, for example? Increasing active range of motion. So another example, if you're serial casting your patient, do you have the patient in the proper positioning while applying the appropriate low load stretch that will maximize tissue elongation in order to improve range of motion, your pattern that you're using, and also using gravity to assist you while molding. Some precautions to think about: bony prominences, so ulnar or radial styloid, making sure that you have padding over those. Fragile tissue, maybe you want to use delta cast over thermoplastic. External fixations or pins, making sure those are protected while not having any pressure over them. Areas with minimal support, active range of motion limitations, and sensation. Now the fabrication process. It is very critical to obtain a very detailed subjective history and objective information about the patient before fabricating. First of all, what is the injury and why are you making the orthosis? Does the patient have a diagnosis? Did the patient receive surgery? Is the orthosis going to help the patient at this point? These are all going to dictate how you make your orthosis. Some objective information that you can gather includes their pain level, their skin integrity, wound status, do they have edema, and their active range of motion. Now you are ready to begin molding the orthosis. So what design are you going to use? And is that going to be based off of the goals of the orthosis? Are you creating the orthosis dorsally or volarly, and why? And do you have your pattern ready? Once the orthosis is finished, make sure to practice donning and doffing the orthosis with the patient, and you can also provide written instructions to them to make sure they understand their precautions and their wearing schedule. There are multiple design options when fabricating an orthotic device, and these are going to be based off of the goals and the wants of the patient. The key is to know why you are using one design over the other. So let's look at a thumb spica, for example. You can fabricate this orthosis radially or volarly. So why choose one over the other? Well, maybe the patient is post-op CMC arthroplasty with pins on the radial side of the forearm. Would you fabricate the thumb spica volarly or radially? It may be easier to fabricate this orthosis volarly and put a pin covering over the pins rather than fabricate it radially, where there may be too much pressure applied to the pins, which could harm the patient. Here are some tips and other things to consider during this process. What if you don't know what to make? If you are unsure of how to design or fabricate your orthosis, first determine what the goals are, and this will help you determine the purpose of the orthosis. Then you can seek out help, whether that be from a coworker, a mentor, or other educational resources like this YouTube channel. What if you've never made this orthosis before? Using a pattern will help, especially when you first start out or you are new to fabricating orthotic devices. What if your patient is scared and in high amounts of pain? What do you do? Being very detailed about what is going on, the purpose of the orthosis, and how the orthosis will help the patient will help develop that relationship and help the patient trust you more. Having check-ins with your patient is very important, and scheduling follow-up appointments for adjustments is also critical to ensure the orthotic device is doing what it is supposed to and that the orthosis is not bothering the patient.